it's 2 felony charges for voter fraud, but they've reduced it to $500 bonds. So it's $1,000 total.
Oh my God, man! What the?
Yes, sir. So unfortunately, right now we're gonna have to.
Oh, Governor DeSantis. Let's play video number 2.
Apparently, I guess you have a warrant?
For what?
I'm not sure.
For voter stuff, man.
For voters.
It's what it is. I think the agents with FDLE talked to you last week about some voter fraud, voter stuff, when you weren't supposed to be voting, maybe.
I didn't.
So
What are they talking about?
that's
man?
what we're not the case agents, but what you got to do, they have reduced your bond quite a bit. It's 2 felony charges for voter fraud, but they've reduced it to $500 bonds. So it's $1,000 total.
Oh my God, man! What the?
Yes, sir. So unfortunately, right now we're gonna have to.
Oh my God is right. I mean, the misleadership of Florida knows no bounds. I want you to take a look at what Paul McLeod put up in his tweet the other day. This is an incredible look at the gulf between the voter fraud rhetoric of politicians and reality. Instead of scheming fraudsters, you've got confused people being rounded up by police because they trust the system. Oh, David, well, let's play another one. Then I just want you to go ahead and jump on. I'm just scratching my head right now. Here we are, another woman who was arrested and she is in shock.
Warrant for your arrest? For what? For voter fraud.
Good, how are you, sir?
Right. Oh my God, hold on. Wait. Let me tell my husband.
We're telling him, he's right here.
Right here. So if you can put your hands behind your back, please. Oh my God. Do not move.
Ultimately, ma'am, you have a warrant? Okay. The warrant, listen, hold on, listen. I know you caught off guard, I understand, right? So you have a warrant, it's for voter fraud, okay? Hear me out. It's an ROR. You know what an ROR is?
Oh my God.
You go in, you get booked, and then they're gonna release you from booking.
Really? They're putting handcuffs on her? She's not violent. She's not a threat. Even if somebody voted, I've got members of my family who are dual citizens with another country who probably made a mistake by voting in this country as well, and they weren't supposed to. But the best we should do is, in those circumstances, you send that person a letter and say, hey, you're not allowed to vote, so we need to settle this. But the idea that you're sending police, we're putting cuffs on people, that is terror. And we've got enough issues with trusting police and our institutions to begin with. And now we're essentially gonna say to communities of people who might, may be confused about whether or not they can vote, oh yeah, if you're not sure, well, watch out because the police might come down and bust your door and arrest you on your property and put handcuffs on you. That is pure reckless intimidation that they're carrying out in Florida.
Yeah, it is, at the hands of Governor DeSantis, who, by the way, is going to try to run for president. And the police officers seem a bit confused and a little miffed too, David. I mean, you could tell that by their body language that they kind of felt uncomfortable with even doing this, but they're just carrying out the orders. It makes no sense. I want to go back down memory lane about this state and the type of threat that Governor DeSantis is, not only to the good people of the state of Florida, but to this country. So in November of 2018, nearly 65% of Florida's voters approved Amendment 4. Some of you may be old enough to remember that. A constitutional amendment that automatically restored voting rights to most Floridians with past convictions who had completed the terms of their sentence. Shortly thereafter, in June of 2019, Governor Ron DeSantis signed Senate Bill 7066 into law, prohibiting returning citizens from voting unless they paid off certain legal financial obligations. This is coming from the Brennan Center, reminding us of this. So I want to get this straight, David. The people of the great state of Florida voted on an initiative, a ballot initiative, to allow returning citizens to be able to regain their voting rights. And this governor, along with his dastardly crew, decided to overturn the will of the people. I want folks to follow this. Let's keep going with the Brennan Center. The Brennan Center and other civil and voting rights groups, they filed a lawsuit, obviously, to beat back against this. In part, they did that. So it was the Brennan Institute, it was the NAACP, all of that, they're fighting. So the district court said the lower court said, yeah, you're right about this, but what did DeSantis and crew do? They appealed, and they appealed to the 11th court, and they reversed or vacated the lower court's ruling. No surprise there. So basically, the 11th district issued an order reversing the ruling of the district or the trial court. And you notice there, David, Brennan Center said in block, that all of the justices on that 11th district sat in on this. Usually when you go to a district court, to the 11th circuit, at the court of that magnitude over the lower court, there are only about 3 justices that sit in. But all of the justices were asked to sit in on this. They all did, and they reversed the lower court's decision, which is a problem in Florida. A problem because more than 774,000 Floridians are disenfranchised by the law. And the overwhelming majority cannot afford to pay what they owe. And Black Floridians are more likely to owe money and to owe more than their white counterparts. No surprise there that is the reality. The state does not reliably or consistently track the data on what people owe, so it is often impossible to make eligibility determinations. David, I argue that Governor DeSantis knew exactly what he was doing. He knew the ramifications and the impact that this would have on returning citizens, and especially Black returning citizens and other returning citizens of color. He knew exactly what he was doing. I call this a 21st century poll tax.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this was Governor DeSantis tamping down voters who would not vote for him. And look, I get that there may be some, and clearly the courts have ruled that there is some sort of debate. There's arguments on both sides as to whether or not a sitting governor of the state of Florida can override the will of the people depending on how the legislation is passed. But that's the legal argument. The moral argument here to me is more important. And that is the will of the Florida people. They said, no, we want these people to vote. And this is not an issue of, the governor should say, okay, fine. You know what? If those people are gonna vote, I'm gonna work even harder to explain to those people why they should vote for me. But instead, he's short-circuiting the process. He's going for a power grab because he knows that his policies will not work with a majority of Floridians. So the only way that he wins is by tamping down and making sure that certain people don't vote for him. That's not democracy.
Not at all. It's called rigging the system. And that is exactly what the governor is doing. Absolute power corrupts absolutely, and this is corruption. By any measure, this is corruption, and it is wrong that it is happening in the 21st century. But here we are. Florida, do better. Get your governor. Get your governor.